Today, we are thankful. We give thanks to God for His love, His mercy, and His faithfulness. We give thanks for family and friends, life and laughter, and the little things which bring joy to our lives. We give thanks for our circumstances, even when they're difficult, for we know the hand of God guides us through it all. But what if we remembered thankfulness every day? What if we lived in a constant state of gratitude? Would our lives be different? Would our faith be strengthened? Would the things of God permeate every aspect of our lives? The Bible tells us to give thanks in everything. What would life look like if we actually lived that out? Today, we are reminded of all we have to be thankful for. May that gratitude move our hearts and cause us to make every day Thanksgiving.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend. I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. My life laid down, I surrender now, I give you everything. It's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now, I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so of the goodness of God.
Good day, Emo CRC. On behalf of myself and my family, we wish you a very happy and blessed Thanksgiving. It's also wonderful for us to finally be here in Emo, Ontario, and it's especially wonderful for us to be able to celebrate Thanksgiving with you as a congregation. If I were to ask you to write a song of praise and thanksgiving to God, what would the song be about? When you think about your life at the moment, is there something you're particularly grateful about? What has the Lord done in your life, in the world around you, that makes you want to burst out in songs of praise and thanksgiving? What would you sing about? Would you sing about the Lord's work of salvation in your life? About how He saved you from sin, gave you His Holy Spirit and made you His child? Or would you sing about the ways He's cared for you through the years? Or would you sing about the power and greatness of God revealed in creation? About the millions of stars in the night sky? Or the beauty of a rainy river sunset? Or the gift of life-giving rain that rejuvenates a dry land? I know for myself and my family, we have a song of praise and thanksgiving to God for bringing us safely here to Emo, Ontario. It's been such a long journey getting here. So when we wake up in the morning and we look out towards the rainy river, our hearts are filled with joy and incredible gratitude to God. Once again, I want to ask you, what would the theme of your song be? What would your song of praise and thanksgiving be about? In Psalm 147, the psalmist sings a hymn of praise to God as the Creator who cares for His creation and His people. In fact, we might say the psalmist sees God's care for creation as an icon or symbol of His care for His people. In a sense, God's care for creation is intricately connected to His care for His people. They have the same origin. Both these divine actions flow from God's abundant grace and mercy. All throughout Psalm 147, the psalmist jumps back and forth between thanking God for His care for creation and thanking God for His care for His people. So, for example, verses 2 through 3 say, "The Lord builds up Jerusalem. He gathers the exiles of Israel. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds." But in the very next verse, verse 4, the psalmist declares, He determines the number of the stars and calls them each by name. Similarly, verses 13 through 14 say, He strengthens the bars of your gates and blesses your people within you. He grants peace to your borders and satisfies you with the finest of wheat. And then the following two verses say, He sends His command to the earth. His word runs swiftly. He spreads the snow like wool and scatters the frost like ashes. God cares for his people, and God cares for his creation. The two go together. The two are closely connected. I know we live in times of great uncertainty, where it may sometimes seem like the Lord is far from us. There's so much turmoil in the world around us. It's easy to start feeling anxious and worried, wondering if God will really provide for us. But I want to invite you to look at creation today. Look at the wonderful way in which God provides for the birds of the air, the animals of the forest, and the flowers in the field. Look at God's care for his creation, and let that reassure you that God will continue to care and provide for you as well. After all, the God of all creation loves you. In my first meditation today, I spoke about the connection Psalm 147 makes between God's care for creation and his care for his people. Psalm 107 reflects on God's provision to his people through creation. He gives them water to drink from the flowing river. He gives them fields for growing crops and vineyards. He gives them herds of animals. He gives them these things to provide for them. Yet Psalm 107 also reminds us of the affliction, the pain, and the suffering we experience when these good gifts are missing from our lives. When God doesn't give these things to us. But returning to the theme of creation and God's care for his people, interestingly enough, Jesus also draws such a connection in his preaching and teaching. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, we find Jesus pointing to God's care of creation as evidence that God will care for the physical needs of his people. We shouldn't be overly concerned or anxious about the needs of life, since we have a loving God and Father who looks after us. As Jesus explains, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin, yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith?" I know when the pressures of life press down on you, when we've lost our job or we've suffered some financial setback or we're struggling to pay the bills, I know it's difficult to trust that the Lord will provide for us. But I want you to think about the following. I wonder what would happen if all the doctors and nurses suddenly quit their jobs. Who would take care of our medical needs? I wonder what would happen if all the mothers and fathers suddenly decided to stop parenting. Who would look after the children? I wonder what would happen if all the teachers suddenly decided to stop teaching. Who would educate our children? I wonder what would happen if all the farmers stopped farming. Who would provide us with meat, vegetables, and milk? I wonder what would happen if all the police officers stopped policing. Who would fight crime? I wonder what would happen if all the firefighters stopped fighting fire. Who would put out the fires? I wonder what would happen if all the pilots stopped flying, all the bus drivers stopped driving, and all the ship's captains stopped sailing. How would we travel from one country to another? But most of all, I wonder what would happen if the one who makes all these things possible would stop caring. How would we be able to live a single day of our lives, if the Lord our God stopped caring for us? The fact that we're alive today, the fact that we're able to breathe, to eat, to sleep, to work, to sing, to lift our hands in worship, to be with our family and friends, to gather together with other children of God. All of these things are thanks to God's care for us. Recognizing God's constant care for us fills our hearts with a deep and profound gratitude. I love the way Thomas Merton puts it. To be grateful is to recognize the love of God in everything He has given us. And He has given us everything. Every breath we draw is a gift of His love. Every moment of existence is a grace, for it brings with it immense graces from Him. In Psalm 126, the psalmist reflects on the powerful way in which the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, bringing them back from exile to their beloved Jerusalem. On the one hand, it's a song of praise and thanksgiving for the amazing things He's done in the past. As the psalmist puts it in verse 1 through 2, when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Can you relate to this? Has the Lord ever brought you out of a situation where you simply couldn't believe you survived it? When the psalmist looks back on the past, there's an overwhelming sense of gratitude for what the Lord has done, but it doesn't stop there. The psalmist doesn't just look back on the past with gratitude, but also looks towards the future with expectancy. Everything is not yet as it should be. There are still things where the Lord's supernatural intervention and help is sorely needed. This might be what you're experiencing today. You're immensely grateful for what the Lord has done in your life. You're filled with gratitude for all the things He's done. But as you sit there today, you know there are still things where you desperately need God to intervene. Maybe it's a family situation that needs resolution. Maybe you've been praying for the salvation of a loved one for many years. Maybe you're facing a very difficult health situation. Whatever it is, you know you need God to intervene. So what evidence can I offer you today that God will help you? What proof can I show you that ultimately God's will for your life will be done? What symbol of hope can I offer you that God is with you, even if it doesn't feel that way or seem that way today? My answer is, I can only point you to God's love as manifested to us through sending His Son to die for us on a cross. If you ever have any doubt that God the Father loves you, think about what He was willing to sacrifice to reconcile you with Himself. He gave up His only Son, Jesus, so you could have life, abundant life. If such love doesn't convince you of God's love for you, then nothing will. As Paul writes in his letter to the Romans, What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own Son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? No situation you're facing in your life today is too difficult for God. Nothing. I urge you to put your trust in God. Thank God for what He's already done in your life. The amazing things He's done for you already throughout the course of your life. Thank Him for that. And yes, also thank God for what He's going to do. As the psalmist says, those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy.
Thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever wilt be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin and a peace that endureth, thy own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto